I'll tell you why the LA Kings played their best game of the season, posting a big win in Toronto. That's next on Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Well, the LA Kings started off their 4-game road trip and wrapped up the month of October with a Halloween treat for their fans. The Kings pretty much dominated the Toronto Maple Leafs in a 4-1 victory. Kings started strong, got a goal from a very unexpected place to start this one off. That would be defenseman Andreas Englund. Unexpected because he had never done that before in his NHL career. He gets his first career NHL goal to give the Kings that 1-0 lead. Philip Deneau would add his second of the season to give the Kings a 2-0 lead after one period. More Kings in the second period, adding to their lead, a power play goal from Arthur Kaliyev, his second of the season, that made it 3-0. Onto the third period, the Leafs finally got on the board, a John Tavares power play goal to spoil any potential shutout bid for goalie Cam Talbot. Adrian Kempe would ice it, though, not with an empty net goal this time, his first non-empty net goal of the season, and the Kings skated off with a convincing 4-1 win. As for the stats, surprisingly, the Kings were outshot in this game, 30-27. It certainly didn't feel like that if you watch the game. Both teams were 1 for 4 on the power play. Leafs won the faceoff battle, 31-23. The Leafs had more blocked shots, 14-9. Both teams were even in hits with 18 apiece. This is a great example of how stats sometimes do not tell the story of a game. Even though on the stat sheet, looks like the Leafs were the better team. Obviously, that wasn't the case on the scoreboard, and it really wasn't the case when you watch the game. From start to finish, the Kings were the better team. They dominated play at times and, frankly, made the Leafs look like a second or 8 team, cycling the puck for prolonged periods of time in the Toronto end. It got so bad, the Kings at one point held the puck in the Leafs end for something like the final 3 minutes of the second period, and the boos were raining down in Toronto from their fans. So as we do after each Kings game, want to talk about what we liked and a little bit later what we didn't like. And believe me, there is a lot to like about this Kings victory. And let's start with the biggest thing to like, and that's that the Kings played a full 60-minute game. Solid 3 periods of hockey. They started strong. They sustained the effort through the great majority of the game. I believe this was the Kings' best game of the season. And we talked about how the Kings had played a lot of good competition, but they had yet to beaten one of those upper tier teams in the NHL. Well, cross that off the list. The Kings get a great win, and they do it against a great team, and they do it on the road. Another thing that we like so far about this season, and we liked in the game against Toronto, the Kings continue to play well at home, well away from home. 4 road games, 4 road wins. You might be surprised, as I was, that it's the first time in franchise history that the Kings have started a season winning their first 4 road games. The Kings currently in the NHL, tied with Vegas and Boston, all at 4-0, all for the best road record currently in the NHL so far this season. So not a bad way to start a 4-game road trip. They've got games in Ottawa, Philadelphia, and Vegas coming up, but a big win on the road to start things off in Toronto. Gotta like the continued balanced scoring, again highlighted by defenseman Andreas Englund scoring his first career goal. And how about the play from PL Dubois? Now, maybe it's because he hasn't played with England enough, or maybe he's just showing great confidence in a teammate. But Dubois got the puck from England entering the zone and decided to give it right back to him, a give and go. And England is an offensively challenged defenseman. Now, he was heading to the net, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't really expecting necessarily to get a pass from Dubois. He was probably expecting to, try and go to the net, create a screen. Maybe he gets a rebound on a shot attempt, but nope. Pierre Dubois said, no, here you go, right back to you. And England put the puck on net. Now, he did get a little bit of a fortunate bounce. His shot did go off of a Leafs defenseman and deflect into the top corner of the net past the goaltender. So, again, a little bit fortunate, but he did the right thing. And frankly, it was the right play from Pierre Dubois. Again, maybe if he, you got to know that his teammates, even though, look, Andreas England hasn't been a King for that long, right? But his teammates probably have to know that he's not exactly Drew Doughty or Jordan Spence or a guy who's a little bit more gifted offensively. But to Pierre Dubois' credit, he said, you know what, the right play is to give the puck back to him. He's got it in a dangerous shot. Let's see what he can do. And he put the puck on net, and it ended up going into the net. So good play by both those players, but surprising to see Andreas England get a goal, and good to see a Kings defenseman scoring another goal as well. Philip Deneau scored a gorgeous goal on a beautiful backhand pass from Trevor Moore, who continues to play maybe his best hockey of his career. He's got so much jump right now, playing with a ton of confidence. You would never know he was coming off an injury from a year ago. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and maybe I'll say it again at some point in the season. Trevor Moore needs to play on the Kings penalty kill. He had two awesome shorthanded efforts in this game, almost scored on both of them, and just on pure hustle. For whatever reason, he has only gotten spot duty on that Kings penalty kill, but hopefully that will change going forward, because when he's on the ice, he makes things happen and puts pressure on the other team to have to worry about him scoring a shorthanded goal. He's been close a couple of times and certainly was close on two occasions in the game against Toronto. So I love his hustle. I love the confidence he's playing with, and it's been a great start to the season for Trevor Moore. Good to see Adrian Kempe score a non-empty net goal and a goal to answer a goal. I've said before, Toronto was pretty much dominated in this game, but they did get a glimmer of hope and a little bit of momentum when they finally got on the board. The crowd finally got into it. They finally had something to cheer about. But to see Kempe, the Kings, deliver a dagger after a goal that could have gotten Toronto kind of back in the game, love to see that as well. Put a team away when you've got a chance. I mean, the Kings had Toronto on the ropes for the entire game. Okay, I like to use boxing analogies. Toronto landed a shot, but they didn't let them get any other shots in after that. The power play still not quite clicking the way the Kings hope it will, but the Kings did not lose the special teams battle. Arthur Kaliyev did score a power play goal. The Kings penalty kill, I thought, did a very decent job against one of the top power play units in the NHL in Toronto. So good to not lose the special teams battle. It was an even special teams battle, at least statistically. The Kings gave up a power play goal, and they scored one as well. And we talked about this earlier in the year, but the Kings were losing games against big-time competition because the other team's star players were performing. That was not the case on Tuesday night. Credit the Kings defensively. They did not allow Austin Matthews to have a big game. They did not allow Mitch Marner to have a big game. They did not allow William Nylander to have a big game. All three of those star players for Toronto held off the score sheet, at least they were not allowed to score a goal. I think they were a couple of assists on the one goal, but no goals for Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. Great job by the Kings of shutting down the other team's star players. So a great win for the Kings. Great way to start the road trip. Great way to wrap up the opening month of the NHL season. The Kings now 5-2-2 on the year. Coming up next, we're going to check in on the night for goalie Cam Talbot, and we're going to tell you what we didn't like, and it was only one thing. But that's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish that you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talented roster, then you need Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job and we'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. And that is why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applicants that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked on to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. The LA Kings play the Ottawa Senators Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of the LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. Well, Kings goalie Cam Talbot has now won 3 games in a row. He turned aside 29 of 30 shots against the Maple Leafs to improve to 4-2-1 on the season. He lowered his goals against average from 2.72 to 2.47, increased his save percentage from 0.905 to 0.914. He wasn't challenged too much in this game. He did have a few nice saves in each period. The one goal allowed was with the Kings shorthanded. John Tavares putting a shot into the upper top right corner of the net. So a tough one to stop there. But other than that, another very solid game for Cam Talbot. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Phoenix Copley would get the next start in Ottawa on Thursday, but head coach Todd McLellan has been known to ride the hot hand until given a reason not to. We'll see if that continues. The Kings do have back-to-back games coming up on back-to-back days in a few weeks at Vegas. That will wrap up the road trip on the 8th of November. And then immediately the next day, they're home to host the Penguins. So back-to-back games, one road, one home. Obviously, the plan there would to split the duties between the two goaltenders. Now, I think Cam Talbot would likely get the start in Vegas against the tougher opponent. Pittsburgh struggling a bit right now, and you have Phoenix Copley at home. So we're going to see, I got to believe, a split of the goaltending duties coming up. But before that, there's a game at Ottawa and then a day off and then a game in Philadelphia. So again, I would expect to see, despite Cam Talbot playing well in the moment, I got to think you got to get Phoenix Copley in there at some point to give him a little bit of work. We've talked about this before. Cam Talbot is 36 years old, and while it's early in the season and it's okay for him to get a lot of work early, at some point you do need to start splitting the duties to try and keep Cam Talbot fresher when the games get more important end of the year and come playoff time. So I know Todd McLellan has praised Cam Talbot, even though he is 36. He's talked about his conditioning and that he's in great shape. And I know Cam Talbot wants to play. One of the reasons he came to LA was to be a number one goalie or get a chance to be a number one goalie and to play for a team that has a chance to win. So mission accomplished in both of those areas. But again, the reality is that we have to give Cam Talbot some nights off occasionally. And like I said, I would expect in one of the next 2 games, either Ottawa on Thursday or Philadelphia on Saturday, that we're going to see Phoenix Copley in net. But again, I don't make that call, just predicting the call. So there's always things that a team can improve on, even if they play a game and pretty much dominate the competition. And this game was no different, but there was really only one thing that caught my ire. There was only one thing that I thought was something that needed to be addressed, and that was dumb penalties. The Kings took too many dumb penalties. Now, you might think that all penalties are dumb because they're penalties. You're being penalized for a mistake. You're being penalized for an infraction. Well, yes and no. If you're doing something to prevent your opponent from getting a good scoring chance by taking away that scoring chance by committing a penalty, that's acceptable. You don't like it, but you can live with it. What is not acceptable is careless penalties that really have no bearing on what's going on. That was the case, unfortunately, for the Kings against Toronto. And unfortunately, it came a couple of times from the same player, and that is forward Kevin Fiala. If you haven't paid attention, this is not new for Kevin Fiala. Now, I'm a huge fan of him. He's having a great year. He's putting up points. I think he's on a career-long point streak as we speak right now. But he has been known to take the dumb penalty on occasion, and he did it against Toronto. Had a slashing penalty in the first period. There was no need for it. Second period, he got called for tripping. Again, just careless with his stick. Just needs to be more disciplined. I'm sure he's been talked to about it. But honestly, it doesn't seem like he's changed his game much. This happens pretty frequently with Kevin. A lot of stick fouls by him, and we saw a couple of them in this game. Now, fortunately for the Kings and Kevin Fiala, the Kings were able to kill off both of those penalties. But there was another penalty that they were not able to kill off, and that was a too many men on the ice call later in the game. And again, that's one of those kind of unforced errors. That's just bad communication by the coaching staff or by the teammates. Getting caught out on the ice with the extra player is just is not attention to detail. It's it's a careless penalty. It's something that needs to be avoided. And unfortunately for the Kings, they were not able to avoid that penalty. And the result was that the Maple Leafs got a goal. Fortunately, they weren't able to build off that goal. But again, giving up a power play goal on a penalty like that it kind of doubles the penalty, so to speak. So the one thing takeaway from the game was that the Kings do need to clean up some of those undisciplined penalties. Now, Toronto has a very strong power play, like we talked about. So, I'm not going to be too disappointed that the penalty kill, I guess, couldn't get the job done on that one. But again, my only complaint with the win over the Leafs, Kings need to cut back on those undisciplined, kind of unforced errors in committing those penalties. We do need to pass out our 3 stars of the game, and we'll also tell you what the Kings said after this latest win. We'll do that here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Adrian Kempe scores a hat trick and the LA Kings win the Stanley Cup. That sounds good, right? Well, you know what else sounds good? You winning 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you pick more or less based on goals, assists, points, saves, and more. And Sleeper offers 100 times payouts, 100 times. And although we love the NHL, it's not just about hockey. You've got the World Series going on right now in Major League Baseball. The NFL is in full swing. So is college football, and the NBA is also underway. Now is a great time to get in on all the amazing sports action. Make the right picks, and you could win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. Use Sleeper's terms of use for details. The LA Kings play at the Ottawa Senators Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings with SiriusXM. Use the SXM app to search LA Kings. I love handing out the 3 stars of the game because we only do it after the team wins. So let's do that right now. Honorable mention, I would say, to Cam Talbot, the Kings goaltender. We talked about his night. Wasn't tested too much, but did have some quality saves. I should say, 29 saves is a decent amount of saves, but he didn't have to make a lot of high quality saves. Most of the shots he saw were relatively routine. So a solid night, though, for Cam Talbot, and did his job, and certainly that's all you can ask. He's not, though, one of my 3 stars, and neither is Captain Anze Kopitar, but we did need to acknowledge Kopitar continues to climb closer and closer to another milestone. Of course, he became the Kings' all-time leader in games played earlier this season. He picked up an assist in the win over Toronto, and that was career assist 757 for Anze Kopitar. He is now 5 away from passing Marcel Dion for the most assists in Kings history. So we'll see if he gets that here on this road trip. maybe he gets it back early on at home against maybe that game against Pittsburgh. Maybe you circle that one. But again, 5 assists away from Andre Kopitar to pass Hall of Famer Marcel Dionne for the most assists in Kings history. All right, to the number 3 stars, and maybe this one's a little sentimental, but I'm going to go with my number 3 star, Andreas Englund, the Kings defensive defenseman. His first career goal in this one. Also played a solid defensive game as he's done so far this season for the Kings. He ended up a +2 in the plus minus on the night. So Andreas Englund, for that first goal of his career, is our number 3 star in the game. The number 2 star, I'm going to go with Quinton Byfield. His first game back home against the team he grew up cheering for. He is from Newmarket, Ontario, and continues to play with a lot of jump. Made several nice plays in this one to set up teammates. Had some scoring chances. Ended up with 2 assists. And you can always understand a player kind of going back home. I know he had family and friends there watching him in Toronto. Kind of a special night for Quinton Byfield. Would be nice to see him get a goal. But I think, again, Q continues to play with a lot of jump, a lot of energy, a lot of speed, and, just continuing to improve, and it's noticeable. So I'm going to go with Quinton Byfield for the number 2 star of the night. My number 1 star might surprise a little bit. I thought about maybe going with Trevor Moore because of just the hustle I saw him play with. Talked about his work on the penalty kill. He had a gorgeous assist. But I'm going to go with the man who scored the goal on that gorgeous assist, and I'm going to go with Phillip Danault as my number 1 star. And he's a guy we probably don't talk enough about because he kind of quietly goes about his job, but he is such a steady, smart player. And when he's got the puck on his stick, I always feel like not necessarily something good's about to happen, but I always feel like nothing bad is going to happen. At the very least, he's going to make the smart play. Maybe it's just a dump into the zone to get a line change that you need to get. Just smart play after smart play, always reliable, seems to be in the right place at the right time. And I think his skill is a bit underrated as well. He can finish, and he's a really good passer. Obviously, a great two-way center. Phillip Danault, like I said, he's probably a guy we don't talk about enough, but a key component, very important player, and centering that number 3 line. They've been very good all year long. I'm going to give Phillip Danault our number 1 star of the game. Maybe it's a bit for what he's done on the season, but also a solid game for him as well against Toronto. I did want to check in on what was said after the game, after what I think was the most complete effort and thus the biggest win of the season so far for the LA Kings. So Todd McLellan, head coach of the Kings, was asked, first question from the media afterwards, was this the best game of the season for the Kings? And he didn't exactly go there. He didn't say yes, but he did say that it was a solid night and a full team effort. So the coach not wanting to go there as far as saying it was the best game of the season for the LA Kings. I disagree, though. I think it was. I did notice one thing that kind of caught my attention that McLellan said. And he mentioned how his job as a coach is now so much easier with this Kings lineup because he doesn't have to really worry about matchups. He's just rolling out 4 lines. It's keeping things simple because everybody's playing so well. We talked about the balanced scoring, and that's been one of the stories so far for the LA Kings. Going into the year, kind of talked about with the loss of Gabe Vilardi, with the loss of Alex Iafallo, who are some of the guys that are going to pick up the slack. Certainly, I would have never guessed Alex Laferriere would be in the mix. I kind of thought Arthur Kaliyev would be a guy that would be circled. Trevor Moore as well, having a bounce back year. But it's really been everybody and just contributions from all over the place. And even from an Andreas Englund against Toronto. So it's been, again, one of the great storylines. And I thought caught my attention, Tom McLellan saying his job right now as a coach, pretty easy, just rolling 4 lines, not worrying about any matchups at all. Goalie Cam Talbot was asked if this was the Kings' best game of the season afterwards. And he said it was definitely one of the best games that they've played. So he didn't exactly say it was, but gave it a little bit more credit, I guess, than Todd McLellan was willing to go to. And of course, Andreas Englund had to be asked by the media what he thought about finally getting his first career goal. And he did say he admitted that he was wondering if he would ever get an NHL goal. Well, he can cross that off the list. 88 career games before he finally gets his first career NHL goal. So great night for Andreas Englund. Great night all the way around for the LA Kings. Like I said, I thought it was their best game of the season. Do you agree or disagree? Certainly your comments are welcome for our Friday feedback show on that. And you can post your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section below. I thought it was the best complete game for the LA Kings. Also doing it on the road against the top level opponent. All in all, best win, best game for the Kings this season. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, just a heads up. I am going on vacation here in a few hours, and there is a chance we may not have a show on Thursday. I'm going to try and make that happen. But as you can imagine, traveling and things that are planned, if it doesn't happen, you'll know why. Okay. I do promise, however, we will definitely have a show on Friday. On that show, we will recap the game against Ottawa. And also we'll have our regular Friday feedback show where we will give you a chance to comment on what's going on with the LA Kings, sending an email or posting your comments on the YouTube episodes. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. We'd also love for you to stay connected with the show on social media. You can follow us on X, or the site formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram as well. We are at Locked On LA Kings on both of those platforms. All right, I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings. Hope you enjoyed talking about the Kings' latest win, maybe the biggest win of the year. But looking forward to them continuing to get it done on the road. We'll see how they do in Ottawa coming up. But again, thanks for listening and watching. Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great day, and we will talk to you on our next episode. As always, go Kings, go.